Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur serta daerah Johor Bahru, Paku Pahat dan Pontian sebagai Johor. Case index bagi kluster ini telah dikenalpasti positif COVID-19 hasil saringan individu bergejala pada 7 Oktober dan telah dimasukkan ke Hospital Sungai Buloh. Saringan kontak rapat telah menalpasti 16 lagi kes positif COVID-19.
This comes as at least 63 people reportedly tested positive in mass screenings related to the One Utama Mall, with 44 of them among security personnel, while 3 mall goers tested positive. The mall has been closed since October 11th. Meanwhile, an intern working at Mutiara Damansara's Tesco Extra has tested positive for COVID-19. The hypermarket has been closed for sanitization and will reopen at 10 a.m. today. Separately, the Tropicana Golf and Country Resort has reported a total of 25 cases so far. The resort will only reopen upon recommendations from the Petaling District Health Office. This comes as the Galen Centre for Health and Social Policy CEO Azrul Muhammad Khalid told BFM the recent rise of COVID-19 cases throughout the country is an indicator that the current pandemic may last for at least the next 2 years.
We started to see some cases unlinked which have emerged in malls. One after another, we started to hear more malls having cases and malls having to shut down and desanitize. So what this tells us is that this disease is here for the long run, and it is something that we're going to have to manage and learn to live with for the next couple of years at least. And how we go about tackling it will be based on how vigilant we are.
In Thailand, mass protests took place in Bangkok yesterday, calling for the removal of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and his administration, as well as reforms to the monarchy. Protesters occupied the Democracy Monument from 8 a.m. yesterday and have remained there overnight. Riot police were also filmed pushing back protesters as they crowded around the royal motorcade carrying the king and queen. In sports, Italy and the Netherlands drew 1-1 in last night's Nations League group stages match, with Manchester United's Donny van de Beek scoring the only goal for the Dutch. Meanwhile, Brighton captain Henry Maguire was sent off the pitch at England's 1-0 defeat to Denmark last night after being shown a red card in the 31st minute. In business news, Malaysia Airlines reportedly no longer has any more investor interest to take over the carrier, despite at least 9 parties at the start of the year. According to a Malaysian Reserve source, neither a merger nor a rescue is likely, with air travel continuing to be impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, according to NST Business, Khazanah Nasional, which owns MAS, is considering Firefly as a replacement, adding that closing down the national carrier would be the last resort. This comes as Malaysia Airports Holdings recorded an annual 69% fall in overall passenger movements at its airports last month at 3.5 million. The fall in domestic passengers was 50%, while international movements plunged 91%. And in Japan, ANA Holdings has secured $3.8 billion in subordinated loans to help it weather the slump in air travel. ANA chalked up a $1.5 billion loss in its latest quarter. In markets, Wall Street stocks fell for a second day as hopes for further coronavirus stimuli before the US presidential election fade. The Dow closed 0.6% lower, the S&P 500 was down 0.7%, while the Nasdaq fell 0.8%. Earlier in the day, Asian stocks finished mostly lower as investors reacted to the Chinese president's speech in Shenzhen. Back home, the FBN KLCI closed 0.1% lower at 1,523 points. And on the forex market, $1 is worth 4.15, €1 is worth 4.87. I'm Keith Kang. You are now up to date on BFM 89.9, the business station.
The BFM traffic report brought to you by Shell.
According to Waze, traffic is clear across the Klang Valley at this time, also likely because CMCO is in force. So because of that, do expect some congestion later in the morning if you're heading out, especially where roadblocks are in place. These include the access to the NKVE from Setia Alam in Shah Alam just before the toll plaza, as well as on the Bukit Jalil Puchong Highway at Bandar Kinrara 5.
This BFM traffic report was brought to you by Shell, keeping Malaysians safe by sanitizing all door handles, nozzles and counters hourly at all Shell stations nationwide.
The King Living Celebration Sale ends soon. Save up to 50% on the best in Australian furniture design. So why buy ordinary furniture when you can come home to King Furniture? Hurry, visit the Bangsar or IPC showrooms or shop online today.
HP now offers its first technology plan with free cloud service to ease your business digital transformation affordably. With a HP for Business installment plan, you can now own a HP PC with only 85 ringgit 50 cent over 36 months. It comes with a free 1-year Discera
still manageable at below 5%, but people are definitely focused.
So 100%, and then the wealth divide between poor and rich, and then of course the young. It's very similar problems that
Globally.
as in Malaysia. I saw a BBC report which talked about the demise of the Full Moon Party of Koh Phangan, and Koh Phangan is one of the most visited tourist sites in the country, and there's nobody there.
Even Phuket, there were articles, it's a ghost town,
Yeah, it's a
right?
ghost town.
So just imagine the data. If you look at it, since you know I like my numbers, in 2019, 14 million people visited Thailand. For 2021,
40.
40, okay.
I think Malaysia's only ever managed 26, 27.
Yeah, and a lot of it isn't real because half of them are from Singapore doing day trips, right? But okay, for Thailand, 40 million. I think for 2021, they were expecting 9 million at the best, and that's a very optimistic number.
Yeah, when you just said 40, you sounded like Uncle Roger. But speaking of economic pressure, this pandemic is pushing many households into poverty, right? And that gives us another story. This free fall in GDP, Southeast Asia's five biggest economies. Indonesia is down 5.3%. Malaysia was down. I think these are Q2 numbers, right?
Yeah.
Malaysia down 17%. The Philippines down 16.5%. Singapore 13.3%. Thailand 12.2%. So actually Malaysia was hit. And I'd be willing to see. I'd be very interested to see what the Q3 numbers will look like.
Well, I think most economists already say that the second quarter is probably the worst, and after that there will be recovery. But the pace of recovery, and that's the big question mark. What kind of pace are we going to see? Is
Yeah.
it going to be very slow, very uneven?
Okay, shape, right? That's the case, maybe.
So who's going to pay the price for this slower economy? And I think the question, of course, is the divide between the have and have nots.
100%, and a bit of a primer because tomorrow I think we talk about the upcoming. Well, Khazanah Research Institute have released a report on the state of the household, and I think we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Looks at the poverty and welfare situation. In fact, this week, in fact later, right? Poverty and welfare situation in the country, and of course, that's going to be very interesting from a very personal perspective, right? Everybody's affected.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, actually, it is tomorrow between 7 to 8 a.m. But I think what has highlighted the inequalities exist, and the worrying part is COVID-19 accelerates or creates an even greater inequality. So, the typical thing about working from home, this only happens if you have a digital device. If
That's
you
right.
have
If you don't-
internet at home, you have access to broadband. Or what if you don't? These issues are real.
Absolutely. Okay, 45 minutes past 6. We'll come back after this with some social media and some news headlines from newspapers. BFM 89.9.
Everyone's back in the office, but SOPs still apply. Keep that 1 meter distance for those water cooler chats. Wear a mask when heading out to tap out your favorite lunch. And your 20-second mantra when washing your hands can be your countdown to the weekend. This message is brought to you by BFM 89.9.
Because friends matter. BFM 89.9, the business station.
at about 1 o'clock, talking about how the MATA, Malaysian Association of Travel and Tour Agents, the president, Dato' Tan Kok Liang, said that these restrictions have come at a very fragile time, and basically it's going to cause another bit of a span in the works where travel operators are concerned. Robert has also sent a commentary from CNA, Channel News Asia, about how Southeast Asian Airlines are falling from the sky. And this obviously comes at a time when Malaysia Airlines is highly beleaguered. And the latest news flow is that I think there were 9 shooters at the start of this year. Today there are no longer any because it's come at a worse time for air travel. But just to kick off our proceedings where news headlines are concerned, the HCO brief talks about how it leads with Istana Negara postponing any meetings because of the coronavirus curbs, and obviously this makes PM and Waiting Anwar wait a little bit more and kicks the can down the road where the King's decisions on his majority is concerned.
Yeah, actually yesterday we had a call with Dr. Bridget Welsh where she highlighted that a possible solution, I'm not sure whether that's the right word, could be Parliament, which is going to meet on the 2nd of November. So whether that vote of no confidence will materialize is the big question, right? But the other headline we have is on page 8 of the New Straits Times, and it's a committee to ensure vaccine supply. And this is on the back of Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Khairi Jamaluddin saying that the COVID-19 vaccine supplies access guarantee special committee will be helmed by him and Health Ministry Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Alam Baba. And you can find out and listen to the man himself because he's coming in for a breakfast grill tomorrow morning at 8:05. So definitely tune in. We're going to talk about COVAX, we're going to talk about vaccines, digitalization, and maybe a little bit of politics.
Yeah, he's quite an erudite and eloquent person, isn't he? So I'm sure he'll have a very nice verbal joust with him on live radio tomorrow morning. The Malaysian Insights runs with the story about Kuli Rosali, who wants a no confidence vote against Queen in the Parliament. I think we'll see you talk about 2nd of November is the next time that Parliament sits. And obviously the rumour mill has him taking quite a significant position in any new government that might be formed. Also from the HCO brief, and this apparently comes from Reuters, I think, quoting Dato' Sharil of Khazanah, the chief executive, saying that iFly could be the next national airline. And that is indeed true. That's going to be very interesting, not just for Malaysia Airlines per se, but how the child is might one day overtake the parents in terms of the new normal.
Yeah, another business headlines I'm looking at is the New Straits Times also. It's about the merger proposal, and this is also from Dato' Sharil from Khazanah saying that the merger proposal between Equal and Sunrise is not available.
Sometimes what is isn't, and what isn't is, right? So read between the lines what you will.
And very quickly, I think there are, last week there was talk about AirAsia selling all its data to an American
I
company
saw that.
for, if I'm not wrong, for $1 billion US. So now the question is this data for sale,
to sell
in the first place?
right?
Yeah, because there's all these things about data privacy, right?
Nobody mentioned Cambridge Analytica to Tony, please. Okay.
So I guess there's question marks about that in the first place.
Okay, the Star, a bit of a Freudian slip, but the Star goes with the headline on more clarity for travel restrictions. I think this is very important because a lot of people don't know what is and what isn't permitted in this new CMCO. Myself included, I don't know whether I can go to Penang, can't go to Penang.
You can't.
Restaurants open,
Restaurants are open, but only for 2 people if you want to do dining.
And beyond 6 o'clock, they can't open, right? But then
No, they can until 10 p.m.
That's what I mean now, right? And then Selangor says it's not applies to them. So
No, it does apply to them.
really? Right?
I'm trying
Are you
to
Ismail
correct.
Sabri's best friend?
I am trying desperately to keep up with all the SOPs.
And this is us at the forefront of the news. Imagine
Yeah.
the layperson, right?
The one thing is that I want to know is like, okay, there's this article, this point about SOPs where 2 people can only be in the car to go and buy necessities. But if you're not buying necessities, then are you allowed to have more than 2 people?
What if you go for a pack of twisties? Is that allowed?
I don't know. I mean, if let's say you're working and you have to send your kids to your mother's house, is that allowed or not allowed? Because that's not necessities, right?
Well, you should if you want to get them off.
So these are the questions my friends ask me, and I say, honestly, just because I'm media, I also have no clue.
Yeah, Ismail, come on, man. Tell us what the score is. The HCO brief, page 3, total value of loan repayments have reached 70% of pre-moratorium levels, according to Bank Negara. So that's obviously good, which means that that's some indication in terms of the economic recovery, right? I'm sure that's good news.